Welcome to the KC Ingram Show, where we break down the headlines, ask the tough questions, and bring you real conversations that matter right here on the Treasure Coast and beyond. If you like the show, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm Casey Ingram. Let's get into it. Well, welcome back to the Casey Ingram Show, Commissioner Vargas. Today, I'm joined by Commissioner Vargas, who's been busy representing Martin County and wanted to bring back some information from one of the latest conferences. So, Commissioner Vargas has really been one of the more outspoken members on the Board of County Commissioners, and she frequently asks detailed questions about county spending, about transparency, and about government accountability. And so today, I mentioned the conference she was just at, but we're going to cover four main topics. The first one is going to be her recent attendance at the National Association of Counties conference. We're also going to talk about questions surrounding commissioner travel expenses. Then we're going to move on to the governor's proposed property tax reforms and what they could mean for Martin County taxpayers. And finally, we're going to cover House Bill 1329, which increases financial transparency and public access to local government budgeting and spending. So, Commissioner Vargas, thank you for joining me again.
You are most welcome. Thank you.
So many residents have probably never heard of NACO. I'm going to call it, I don't know if that's the acronym that they call it, but it is the National Association of Counties. And why should Martin County taxpayers care that commissioners attend these conferences?
This is based on our population. It is available for all of the staff, including the commissioners, to be able to attend. This includes the elected officials, other officers, county employees, any of those that are employed by Martin County. The thing is, it's important to have an advocacy group, and this is on the national level. This is extremely important today because without our voice to be heard from the state of Florida, from many, many member counties in Florida, we would actually be muted. And what they've done for us is to be able to go forth and protect the county priorities because we express them. I know the officers, I know those on the committee also. Having just been in office for a year and a half, but I hit the ground running. This was my promise. The other thing that they do, they provide leadership and professional development. And so, having said that, those that are in office may not have all the same responsibilities before in their private life, in their business life. And so they have to develop through conferences, workshops, webinars, because we do have that, have leverage learning academies also. We're public servants, and it is our duty to excel for the benefit of our taxpayers and our constituents in our counties. So there are about 10,000 county leaders that have graduated from the NACO High Performance Academy, and that's a 12-week program. The other thing is NACO does a lot of research and provides a lot of information. Nobody can know everything, but they have to know how to find brains on tap. And so this is what I do. They have their newspaper, their updates. They focus on county resources and documents that may be innovative, local stories that may pertain, or maybe another county from across the U.S. that has the same entanglements, is questioning, that may also look for a solution. And this is what I do. And so they track, NACO tracks, that's the National Association of Counties. And that's what it is, to bring this data forward to us. And it can also deal with economic data, which right now is extremely important. The other thing that they offer too is cost saving tools, because collectively they're able to offer more services and products to procure contracts that are effective for asset management and employee benefits. And they also have an employment database too, because somebody may want to move from Yuma, Arizona to beautiful Florida. Why not put it out there and let folks know? I would say that there is also military communities. They have a tech exchange, and I mentioned about the Leadership Academy. So these are some of the things that they do have. My predecessor was also involved with NACO, so I just picked up the baton and ran with it. But anyway, we're very happy to be a member of NACO and will continue to do so. More recently, and I think you asked this question, Casey, I was at the Florida Association of Counties conference. And the thing is that they also have advocacy. They are based in Florida. They're based in Tallahassee. However, we join with other counties, the other 66 counties, and the state of Florida to be able to review some of the advocacy exercises. So there have been some wins last year, and I'm just reading some of my notes right here because I did do my research as I always do before I'm at a meeting or be able to speak to somebody or get the message out properly to my constituents. The thing is that there was a utility relocation to reimbursement grant program, and they were able to modify this. They removed impact fee caps, the modification to reduce potential preemption of Live Local 3.0. That's the affordable housing. They supported the state recycling plan. They also supported one water approach resolution. Now, in 2025, the preemptions that were stopped, preemptions mean taking away home rule. In other words, what you, us taxpayers, want to have a say in. And this is something that we really need to sit up and pay attention because this is happening very fast. They prevented legislation from imposing term limits on counties. A lot of times you have some folks that may not be as adept and run as fast to understand their position and to be able to garner the information and actually have input that does matter. And so usually it may take about 4 years for some. We're all at different levels. But anyway, they also defeated legislation expanding use of agricultural enclaves. And these are different House bills and Senate bills. And they derailed legislation, local option taxes, reauthorization, and tourist development tax offsets. They stalled legislation preempting siting of waste incineration facilities. They have a coalition of local governments that cautioned wholesale changes to sovereign immunity laws. So there's quite a few things here. They also have an advocacy and educational platform. It's keepfloриdathriving.com. Keepfloриdathriving.com. I urge everyone that is listening to this podcast to go to that and take a look and see what they've been able to put together. And they're constantly adding to it. And they think they also have data-driven resources that can highlight the importance of protecting local revenues. That's your tax dollars to keep them here or bring them back because we all pay taxes some way, and it can go to the federal level, which then is funneled down to the state, and then the state will disperse to the counties. But you have to have a seat at the table. If you're absent, then you have no say. And I definitely want Martin County to have a loud say.
So
And
if I can break in for 1 second here, these organizations, it's kind of something people may not be aware of because a lot of home rule has been taken away with SB 180 and other bills. And we're frustrated because our representatives at the state level are voting for them. And, they're one person up there. So there's a lot of forces that are creating votes, whatever you want to say. But these organizations actually have lobbyist groups that are going in there on behalf of counties. So we have another way to get a voice into more than one legislature. So I think that's important to kind of let residents know and constituents know it's so important to advocate for us because we have lost our voice and these organizations are pretty powerful, representing 67 counties.
yes. This is very so. The other resources that they have is, well, we're right in this right now, is easy to understand explanations of how property taxes fund critical county services. We all know it's coming in November. Are we going to make the decision to vote yes or vote no? I can only say make sure that you understand very clearly. I'm not advocating one way or the other right now, but understand what the question is. There have to be some shifts.
Was that one of the larger discussions at NACO was around governor's proposed property tax reforms when you were up there? And how significant was those discussions?
Well, I would say that it was standing room only in numerous sessions that were talking about this particular tax change for ad valorem, the real estate taxes. And we had principals, we had folks that were from the legislature, whether retired or active, that were talking to this. And if I could say that it was great that there was one other commissioner, and that's Commissioner Blake Capps, was at the most recent conference that I was at, the Florida Association of Counties conference, as well as our county administrator, Don Donaldson, his aide, assistant county manager, governmental affairs director, our chief engineer, and the county attorney. And the thing is, they were there to understand and learn, ask questions if they chose to. But if there was ever a meeting that a Martin County Commissioner should have attended. This was the one in light of the ad valorem tax reduction that will reduce tax revenues for every county and municipality. We were told that possibly some of the smaller counties, that means diminished population counties and municipalities, may be absorbed into larger counties. There has to be a shift. This is not something that is static. It's very fluid right now. And the other thing I want to talk about some of these points. I talked a little bit about NACO and FAC and the value that they present. And the thing is that it leads me into maybe another topic. I don't know if you're ready to discuss this about travel expenses.
Yeah, we're going to go there in a minute. Let's stay on this for a second. Were counties generally optimistic about the proposed constitutional amendment, or is there significant concern around the state?
I would say there's both. Optimistic, finally, somebody is paying attention. There are others like me that have been sounding the alarm. I was sworn into office November 19th of 2024. The honeymoon period ended January 2025 because we have the holidays and we have Thanksgiving. But I already saw the handwriting on the wall. I had many conversations with my county administrator, and I also spoke in meetings from the dime about the need to trim expenses. We've had a very nominal growth in the county. However, our expenses ballooned way beyond that. Folks have pocketbook issues right now. One of them is their homestead taxes or their commercial taxes or any other taxes that they pay. So we look at the price of gas that's hitting $4, maybe now it's down a little bit, food on the table. How will I educate my children? If I'm ill, can I afford to go to the doctor to pay the copay or my medication? Do I still have a job, or is this another business that is folding up? We've had numerous businesses that have been here as institutions in Martin County that have closed. This is a very serious concern because this upends a whole, family community.
Now, Commissioner Vargas, you mentioned that some of the smaller counties could be absorbed into larger governments if their revenues decline significantly. Certainly because the proposal is about property taxes, Martin County is a little lopsided. We really are heavily dependent on residential property taxes. We don't have as much commercial industrial business taxes to rely on. So we are a smaller county. When you say smaller county, are we talking somebody that's 30 or 40,000? We're 160,000. I mean, are we at risk of being absorbed, do you think?
My opinion right now, no. We are a small county. We are under 200,000 in population. And I'm on the small county committee, which is important. As I say, we exchange ideas and we find solutions. Now, I'm talking about a county that may have 15,000. I'm thinking of one story right now that I picked up from another commissioner who's very, very experienced. And she was saying that they have 15 population. Now it's a northern county, it's up in the panhandle, but 5,000 of that number are inmates. They have 4 prisons up there. And so that eliminates quite a bit of, tax revenue. Those are the type of counties I'm talking about. Some maybe 30 or 40,000.
Okay.
What industries do they have?
All right.
And maybe local. This gal works with a trucking company also, but her husband worked in the prison system. So, their change is inevitable. Change is inevitable. And the more you fight about it and say, I'm not going to do it, that's a temper tantrum. And we really have to step forward and say, okay, how are we going to deal with the situation now? This is what I do. I'm very practical. I deal with numbers and I deal with facts. And I do know my numbers and my facts. And if I don't know, I find out from reliable sources. This is part of attending these conferences. It is so critical. You can never get enough education. You can never get enough context. You can never have enough say. You can never develop yourself fully as a commissioner.
Now, besides property taxes, what were your biggest takeaways from the conference that Martin County residents may eventually benefit from?
Well, there are taxes and maybe get tax relief because they talked about having to reduce expenses. This has been my mantra also. You got to reduce expenses. I do this in my personal practice also with my clients. Let me see what your income is. Let me see what your expenses are. If it's lopsided and you're spending too much, you need to take the scissors to whatever is a want and not a need. I think there are a lot of wants here. And I think that this is going on for too long. Unfortunately, some commissioners have not been able to stand up and say, no, we can't do this. This is not our money. This is our taxpayers' money. And we're the guardians of this. I've always said this. And I'll maintain that. And that's what I stood on my platform. And I'm not relented.
Now, Commissioner Vargas, was there one idea you brought home that you think Martin County residents should seriously consider?
Well, I think that they need to look at the fact that they have appointed people to represent them and to make their voices heard and say, you're going to stop spending so much money. And this is something that I think that there may be a cost shift. There may be a tax shift. There may be a higher sales tax. There may be some fee for services, but some should remain untouched, I believe. But others, they have to pay. Casey, when something is given for free, somebody else is working very hard to provide that. When something is given for free, somebody else is working so that you can have that free.
That's right.
This makes no sense. We must be responsible. We must be responsible. This is what we should be teaching our children also and our students. We are not here to take. We are here to work and provide for ourselves and our family.
So let's go ahead and move on from the value of attending the conferences to one of the topics that generated recent public discussion afterward. And you just brought it up. That's travel expenses, of course. So my first question for you there is the Martin County Taxpayer Association recently released a report using travel records obtained from the Martin County Comptroller covering January through most of May of this year. According to that report, you had spent a little over $9,600. Commissioner Hurd was almost $3,200. Commissioner Capps was a little $2,450. Commissioner Hetherington was a little over $1,400, and Commissioner Campy was at $0. When you first saw those numbers, what was your reaction?
My predecessor spent way more on travel expenses than me, so we know what that's all about. Right? As I said before, it was great that one commissioner attended. It's unfortunate that the other commissioners did not. And the thing is that everybody that I mentioned before, us two commissioners, county manager, governmental affairs director, chief engineer, county attorney, we also had an aide there for our county manager. Well, all of them had travel expenses too. Again, I'll say again, if there was ever a meeting that a Martin County commissioner should have attended. This was one in light of the ad valorem tax reduction that will reduce tax revenues for every county and municipality. The information was invaluable. It can't be repeated. I could maybe give a synopsis of it, but you had to be there to really understand and speak with others and listen to what those that are more in the know had to say and giving the alert. This is what's going to happen. And we have to stop saying, oh, no, I can't hear you. I don't want to see. No, those days are gone. The days of a wink and a smile and a nod and a giggle are over. They're long over. And this is why I was elected. A lot of the constituents reach out to me and they say, I never had anybody that would listen to me, or we were afraid of approaching that previous commissioner. Never followed through. I followed through. And I think that this is what people should expect. They demand it. And I do deliver this.
Well, it's incredibly important. And what I find interesting about this conference with this property tax proposal that's going to be on the ballot, you were talking with counties with 15,000 population, and you're also talking to counties with 2 million, people in population. So it's going to impact everybody differently, and to be able to be in one place and hear everybody's different perspective is invaluable. I agree. The other part that strikes me is, because I preach about this all the time, Commissioner Vargas, is, it seems like our commissioners only take staff recommendation. So staff was up there. So, the other commissioners are probably just going to take staff's recommendation. And I harp on this. I'm electing you all, not staff. So I'm expecting commissioners to do their own homework. So I think that's another part of going there, talking to other municipalities and getting your own perspective so that you can ask logical questions on the dais.
And our staff is very professional. I've had a lot of dealings, different topics, different ideas, plans, finding solutions, constituent concerns with them, and they have responded very quickly. But that's what they know, and that is that's their lane. Okay, to
Right.
know.
Right. It is their lane. They have a perspective that they're going to bring back, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I think it creates a conversation and creates ideas and maybe creates a thoughtful process to this. When you have somebody who hasn't been in that lane all their life, you're not a government employee, to somebody here's that has the constituents mindset and representative. So I think it's a wonderful, way to address this topic and be able to discuss it professionally on the dais. And I want to talk a little bit more too about the expenses because I think that context is very important here. You and Commissioner Capps are the two newest commissioners. Commissioner Hurd has served since 2002. Commissioner Campy has served multiple terms dating back to 2008. And of course, Commissioner Hetherington has served since 2018. So, do you believe newer commissioners naturally have greater travel and training needs than longer serving commissioners?
Yes, I do. And I think that it is a huge mistake as a new commissioner to not try and garner as much information and make as many contacts as quickly as they can. As I said earlier in this our conversation, that situations are very fluid and not just here internationally. I did live overseas also, so I'm very in tune to that, which then funnels to national and then, of course, the state and, of course, the local. Here we are. And so, yeah. There may be certain groups that say, well, yes, my expenses are higher than all the other commissioners, but that's because the others are staying home. That's not what they were hired for. And they have a very nice salary. They should be at every meeting instead of complaining. So I'm going to the meetings because I'm learning. I'm engaging with other administrators also. Yes, I have spoken with a number of administrators, commissioners, and state legislatures. And I'm there representing Martin County. I've got a seat at the table. And I'm doing that for those that said, yes, we appoint you. Not here, as I said, just to show up. Can't complain. That's not what a leader does. A leader leads in the front. And that is what I intend to do. I've talked to you about BAC, Board Association of Counties, NACO, National Association of Counties. I'm here doing my job for the taxpayers of Martin County. Period. End of story.
And that's why they should view this additional expense as a worthwhile investment. That was going to be my next question to you. You pretty much just covered that answer.
Well, it'd be like doing a master's program, but a lot less expensive, I would say. So I bring to the table a wealth of knowledge and information. I've not been a government employee, not that I want to have that on my resume for the next 30 years. However, I'm a fast learner and I know where to find the information. But if you never show up, you have no say at
Yeah.
all. At all.
So let's broaden the discussion to what may become the biggest financial challenge Martin County has faced over decades. And this is something you've already touched on. The Save Our Homes from Excessive Property Taxes constitutional amendment that must receive 60% of the voter approval to pass. Martin County has already modeled several possible outcomes if the constitutional amendment reducing property taxes is approved. Some projections show county revenue reductions ranging from roughly $31 million to more than $121 million, depending on the scenario. How concerned are you?
Extremely concerned. It's almost as if it were a Cat 5 hurricane, Category 5 hurricane. I'm a Floridian. I've been through them all. And nobody is paying attention. They're concentrating on little expenses here rather than saying, wait a moment, we need to look into every single expense with administration. Also, nothing is off the table. And there's a lot of redundancy that I see within this county. Other county representatives have expressed the same concern, and they're doing something about it. Fortunately for them, and unfortunately for me, they have commissioners that see the light. I've been the one that has, as I said earlier, been speaking to this since I was able to start moving in early 2025. I've been met with a lot of resistance. If you constantly say, well, I'm going to go with staff recommendation, why do they need you? They don't need you. We have the staff. We're already paying their salary. We don't need you in that position. Don't need you. You haven't done anything that shows that you're a remarkable person, that you follow what the dictum is of those that are watching you. And believe me, people are watching, not just within Martin County, with the state. When I spoke with the governor, he said, oh yeah, I see you on the dive. And I was,
Wow.
thinking so. I really appreciate that. I really do. That was really a great compliment. And so if there are others that are giving an opinion as to why would that person say that? Staff recommendation, your travel expenses. Yes, let's go ahead and spend money left, right, and center without any thought. It's just a lot of adjectives and superlatives. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Fine project, but they don't give any numbers. They don't quantify because there are no facts. It's just a feel good. We're not there anymore. And I hope we never, ever get there again. I don't see that. I see that there is going to be so much that is owed on debt. And I'm not just talking about here, I'm talking at the federal level, that we are not going to be able to claw our way out of this debacle that's come down.
People claim that all the time, Commissioner Vargas. It's good to hear you say that. Everybody says, oh, we're worried about the debt. But then everybody raises their hand. I want a train station. I want part of those tax dollars, and we just keep spending and spending and spending. And our debt nationally is frightening to me, especially for the future generations. But
Right.
You're 100% right. If we don't start focusing on it locally, it'll never come under control.
Well, it won't. But remember, I said starts at the federal level, trickles down to the state, and then spread out
Here we
throughout
are.
the different counties, of course, dispersed there. Yeah, I think you're talking about House Bill 1329.
We're coming up to that. Let me finish on this one first. So with the property tax reduction bill, the schools are exempt there. So I want people to be aware of that. But other than that, Commissioner Vargas, before reducing services, what areas of the county government do you think should be examined first, or have you gotten that deep into the thought process? I mean,
Well, I'm definitely the administration at all levels. As I said before, there's a lot of redundancy. And I think that today we really have to look what is needed, what is wanted. Wanted means that that says resistance to any change will have to show a cause as to what the validity of a position is. The other thing is it can be trimmed from equipment. I have to look this up. I didn't have time, but during the Depression, you fix it, you mend it.
Right.
And Casey, you may know.
right.
It's not that you lived during the Depression, but I'm saying you may
We
know.
weren't, but that's
I
right.
will find that. I will
You
find
repair instead of go out and buy new all the time, right?
grandparents or great grandparents. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is tantamount to the carefree spending with no safeguards whatsoever. And nobody's saying, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to do that, or we will do it not at all. And that would be, let's make do with what we have, repair it, change it to something we already own rather than buying and just spewing money out as if it were endless. Because if it's not your money, then there have been many that have said, well, let's just spend. It's easy. That is not a leader. A leader knows how to stay within a budget and reduce a budget and question everything.
So, on that, do you believe Martin County government has grown faster than the county's population?
Martin County, you're talking about the
The
administration?
size of the government spending our budget has grown faster
government is
than.
bloated. The government is bloated. They could take a lot of cuts, but there's been resistance. And when you have somebody who shows up on the scene and knows what she's talking about and can think about the issues deeply and can catch all the nuances that are happening very quickly, then there's panic. Oh my goodness. It's like the saying, oh my goodness, she woke up again today. Here she is again saying these things. And that's fine. I'll take that as a compliment. I'm here working and fighting for the taxpayers. I've done that since day one. That was my promise that I made. That was my oath. And no, although the staff is wonderful and they've been very professional, I just don't take staff's recommendation. I look to see, is there a better way? Is there a better way? And there usually is a better way.
Now, Governor DeSantis, you just brought this up, recently signed House Bill 1329, a law aimed at increasing financial transparency in local government. Yay. For viewers who may not be familiar with it, can you explain what House Bill 1329 does?
Okay. Very briefly, it's a quarterly summary of all county employee compensation. The information should be on the county website, easily accessible, and for all the public to view. It'll have the breakdown of, again, as I say, the employees and what their position is and what they're earning. It'll show the population of the county, which hasn't increased much by about maybe 2-3% growth But again, if you look at the expenditures, they are far greater than what the growth has been, far greater than what the growth has been in Martin County. And that's what the Taxpayer Association, which is a partisan association, should be focusing on, not all the other superfluous ideas that they have. They want a budget in every department. And the other thing is update on any non-essential services or non-essential entities that have been receiving tax dollars in the form of rental concessions and or donations. And again, that's a very serious issue because that is not what everybody believes in. So having said that, believes in insofar as give this to this particular group, but I don't favor that group. Why are you doing that? And those are very valid questions. Very valid questions.
It is Commissioner Vargas.
I'm sorry.
And I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but you're touching on something. It is very important. Here in Martin County, we're a very generous county. We do need to look at how much all of our nonprofits are getting of tax dollars. I mean, nonprofits are generally funded because the community says, yes, this is a need, and we all pitch in. But so much of it is now being funded through government tax dollars, whether it's through a relationship you have with commissioners on the dais or friends, or we know this guy, we like him, and he's doing a great job, so we're going to hand him 10,000 or 50,000 or whatever it is. So with this property tax, possible this ballot proposal being passed, we're going to have to look really seriously at all those extraneous organizations that we are funneling tax dollars to.
I could not agree more. And again, this is just one point that I've made. Everything is on the table. I said that before. I've said it from the die also. Nonprofits want to exist for their cause, and I applaud them for taking
Right.
it forward. However, government is not in the business of supporting nonprofits. We're a generous community, and that is where the call for nonprofits need to go into the community and see if they can sell their idea to taxpayers and see if they want to put their hands in their pocket. But the amount of expenses, and I ask for 990s all the time, that is a form that is filed with the IRS as a nonprofit, mind-boggling. The salaries, the events, the travel. There we are. We're talking about conferences. We're talking about insurance. We're talking about retirements. We're talking about rental of office spaces. This is way out of kilter. A lot less goes to a cause. And it's more as if it's somebody setting up a nonprofit to have an income. And a lot of people have come up to me to say this, and they are just angry. Beyond angry. They are livid about this. And I am the voice for all of the taxpayers of Martin County, including splinter groups that, have their ideas of how they want to shepherd a few and make the rules. But it doesn't work like that. You have to, in this position, have the ability to be able to move quickly and also fluidly with no constraints. And the folks put me in this position because they know that I'm a sensible person, that I get my facts, I get my information, and I'm able to bring it to them so that they can say, yes, I agree or I don't agree.
Now, interestingly, the law also requires counties to conduct a public exercise showing how they could reduce spending by 10% without cutting essential services. Why do you think that provision is important?
I think it's important because it goes back to what I said before. There's a lot of fat packed in. And there have been those that have benefited over the years, never been questioned, just been given more and more. It's like the kid that gets a car at 18 from his dad. He's likes to drive the car, and his dad has helped him pay for the insurance, the gasoline on the car, anything that needs tires, a paint job, detailing, whatever it may be, and also the tag on the car to keep the car moving forward. Kid's 35 years old now. Dad says, I want the car, but I don't want to give you the car. I like driving the car. I enjoy the car. A leader would have originally making that kid purchase the car on their own, prove that they're able to handle responsibility and that there's no waste whatsoever. So they would not get in the position in the future of having demand that kid surrender what wasn't his to begin with. And I'm giving that little anecdote because I think it represents a lot of what's happened in Martin County. Been giving, giving, giving. Somebody's been making decisions here unilaterally or in a small group saying this is okay and we're going to continue along with this practice. I don't know where all these traditions started. Again, I've only been here since November late of 2024, but I saw it immediately early 2025.
Now, do you believe Martin County is prepared to comply with House Bill 1329, or is there a lot of work to be done?
I think there's plenty of work to be done. There should be two budgets presented. And now there's one that is the wish list, the want list, and then the other, which is the reality, a lot more work to be done, the 10% reduction. And there is room for that, absolutely.
I think it's a wonderful provision. Now, part of that bill wants to make the county finances easier for the average resident to understand. And in your opinion, has Martin County done a good job of explaining its budget to the public?
No, it's convoluted. Just trust what I say, don't question what I say. Folks are pretty adept. And it's really just addition, subtraction, some multiplication, and some division. It's nothing that's, what was that, third grade? I think they learned. That's or maybe second grade.
Maybe.
I don't know. I taught high
Long
school.
time ago.
So having said that, no, I think there is definitely room for the county to make this very user friendly. And again, make it at a fifth grade level. That's easy enough for folks to digest and question and then be able to make their opinion and weigh in.
So, with this property tax, revenue on the or property tax reduction on the ballot, what financial information do you think is most important for both the commissioners and public to review?
I think every expenditure, that's critical, and question, why is this being spent? Who thought this was a good idea? And I think these are questions that are going to be coming out now. People have awakened. They're sick and tired of being taxed to death. A lot of folks, frankly, have to juggle because those taxes come due. You get your first reduction in November, then it goes to auction if you can't pay by, I think it's February, starts going to March, and on the tax certificates. So, there is no opportunity for a taxpayer to plead or cry and say, well, I promise I'll pay by June if you just don't follow through on whatever your process is. And cost of living has increased substantially. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and what you buy a house for back in 1955 for maybe $5,000.
Yeah.
That's true. When I started in real estate, maybe $60,000. And now somebody says, well, that's a $450,000, $480,000. You want how much for that? But that's just the reality. Having said that, we have to make our government responsible. It's been too much freewheeling with lack of concern and a great old guy or gal who said yes, yes, yes to everything. So yes, there is plenty of room for that. Again, it's unpopular with a lot of my other fellow commissioners, but that's why people have the option every 4 years to make a decision again, to save their lives, the taxpayers' financial lives. And financial ruin can also lead to family breakdown and also mental incapacities because people, again, as I say, who would think Red Lobster would go under? I didn't, but that's just one of them. And we read about big industries and smaller companies and local companies and the quiet closes also. The
Right.
barber shop that couldn't make it anymore. It could be the printer that is pushed out of business. It could be a hairstylist. It could be a little sandwich shop. The costs have all gone spiraling out of control, except government, because government's the one that can come back to the well to get more water, more
That's right.
taxes to the water.
That's right. And here's a good question. Would you support a zero-based budgeting requiring departments to justify expenditures from the ground up rather than simply increasing last year's budget?
Absolutely. Prove to us departments why we should agree to what you're asking for. Enumerate, list, show us, and what is the benefit to us? We can't see that. It's just, here's my list, this is the number, and this is what I want. Again, we had this discussion, KC, earlier in this interview about making do and just taking care of what we have. There's no room for new purchasing. There's no room for any addition to be put on the departments whatsoever. And that goes across the board on everything.
Now, Commissioner Vargas, you've developed a reputation for asking difficult questions during commission meetings, and some residents really appreciate that. Others say you identify problems more often than solutions. How do you respond to that?
Well, I am there on the die, and Sunshine Law does not permit me nor my fellow commissioners to speak to one another about the issues prior to a meeting or in between meetings when we're still discussing an issue. I've never had anybody come up to me and say that I present the problems and not the solutions. I go to my fellow commissioners and ask them, and a lot of the time they're mute. They don't speak. So again, it goes back to why would they be there without offering a solution, a beneficial solution, not a go along to get along. I will never be that person. I will never be that person. And I won't be telling jokes or eating crumpets or whatever from a bakery and crumbling up paper. That's ridiculous. This is a professional meeting. But again, this is the lackadaisical and laissez-faire, it's French, learning a little bit of French right now, attitude that has been prevalent with this commission and the previous commission. And there has been no adjustment. There has been no effort to better oneself, to have more decorum. And instead of just a wrangle and let's spar and this and that, the other, but there are no details, there's no facts, there's no information, there's no effort presented. I haven't had anybody say anything except thank you so very much. We appreciate you, and we don't know what we would have done without you. And this is across the board, across the county, every level.
Commissioner Vargas, I've worked with you on a couple different issues. One of them, of course, we just had an interview on the P3, the $74 million building that was handed out without any competitive bids. We've talked in depth about Brightline, a station that's now ballooned up to $87 million, all taxpayer dollars, not even including the land the county would give them. Just why don't you give us a couple examples of where you identified a problem, but also then proposed a solution?
Well, I don't know how much time we have. Are we talking about Brightline or are we talking about the P3 building?
Just a couple. Could be the P3, could be Brightline, both. But you give me a couple. You gave solutions, I know, on the P3. Just it's just to answer those folks that say you don't bring solutions. I've heard you say solutions. I just want you to address that.
No, I do, but I want to investigate who I'm doing business with. I always do. I do that in my personal business. The other thing is when I am making a purchase or a commitment for dollars. I'm not saying it'd be $10, although I do like a good spirited conversation. Talking about millions of dollars. Remember, it's not our money. We talk about the Brightline. I spoke with the folks privately, Brightline. They came to visit me. That was in early 2025. I said, I've got a lot of questions. They're junk bond status right now, near bankruptcy. I don't do business with somebody who is unstable. My understanding is that this was going to be a wonderful station, but who would maintain it? I guess it would be Martin County, our taxpayers again on the hook. We would have surrendered valuable real estate. There was discussion about the city of Stewart. They made the decision to not continue forward. However, there are a few commissioners in Martin County, including our county manager, that think it's a dandy idea to continue going forward and negotiating. I quite don't understand that. That baffles me. It baffles me. I cannot understand this. I just said they're junk fund status and they're near bankruptcy and they can't put enough money in to save themselves, their own company. They've had to reduce the rates to increase the ridership. So, anything can be skewed and I can look at the charts and I can see it. Having said that, the latest proposed by one of our commissioners was they put a platform. Why would you do that? I just spoke to what the company doesn't have. It is not healthy. Why would you continue a dialogue? They both, two commissioners, chairwoman and also Commissioner Campy and Chairwoman Hurd, and Campy said, yes, I'd like to continue negotiation. Why? Based on what? It is really a land grab. This is what they did, Brightline, in other cities. It's what they did. And they built upon that particular property, those particular properties that were given to them. And I use the word given to them. Taxpayer is just taken out of their hands. Wait a minute, that's mine. Taxpayer should be saying, you can't do that. I didn't push you there to do that. And you should be crying taxpayers out loudly. And I invite you to the meetings to do that, or send letters, or meet with those commissioners if they'll meet with you. I certainly meet with everybody that needs to talk with me, certainly about issues that are tantamount to affecting their daily lives. So I look at it as a land grab. And then they being Brightline sold for their benefit. It's, oh my goodness, how do you go bankrupt slowly and then all of a sudden? And the all of a sudden is here. The all of a sudden is here.
Yes.
I don't want that for Martin County. There have been countries that have gone bankrupt. I think it's Iceland, sticks in my mind. There have been other counties in this country that have gone bankrupt. So I'll leave it at that with the Brightline right now. Let's talk about the P3. Right now, personally, I am looking at renovating a 1910 home. It's a beautiful old lady, nice farmhouse, but I've already interviewed 4 contractors, construction folks. I don't know. I think I'm going to get another one too. I'm going to get another one. Yes, I am. And that's the way that this should have happened. Instead, it was a fast track to sign up with an out of county, not even a Treasure Coast developer who then got their own contractor. And I can't quite understand the glee and the fast maneuvers of those at Martin County that thought this was a dandy idea. Really? Wait a moment. It's $74 million. And I have some notes here because I have thought about this. I've spoken about it. I have the facts. I read through the contract. Did my fellow commissioners do that? Or did they just take staff recommendation or whatever was fed to them?
It definitely, I wanted to talk about this P3 a little bit more, and it definitely seemed like you were the only one that read through that contract. And, I think folks don't realize as well with the P3 doesn't mean no bids. You can still get bids with P3 projects. There's other ones in the county where they have went out for bids on P3. So, it's not about that. It's a very frustrating process. But before we go into it a little bit further, I wanted to touch on this because this is another Martin County taxpayer thing, the association. So it has generated, of course, significant public debate. Now, the Martin County Taxpayer Association has been one of the strongest public supporters of the P3 process and has also been critical of your opposition to it. During the Commission's P3 presentation, Martin County Taxpayer Association President Kevin Powers was one of the few members of the public who spoke in favor of the project. Some residents have also pointed out his connection to the organization involved in the construction of Indiantown Charter High School, which supporters have frequently cited as the model for this project. In addition, Martin County Taxpayer Association board member Tom Campenny, your Friends and Neighbors blogger, has been a vocal critic of your positions on a number of issues as well. Given that context, do you believe the public is hearing an objective debate about the merits of the P3 project, or do you think some of the advocacy has been influenced by those relationships? And more importantly, what are the specific concerns that still lead you to oppose the process?
Very clear, this has not been vetted properly. We had this company come and say, we're going to build, and everybody said, yes, where do we sign? Everybody being the commissioner. And the thing is that my concern has never been about building a public works facility. No, we need one. I did question in the last meeting those commissioners, and of course, one who's very vocal all the time. Why didn't you set up a fund for this 2008? What are we now in 2020? To be able to put aside monies for this. Well, the response was from that commissioner, this Commissioner Campy, well, we didn't have the money then. So we don't have the money now. So now you want us to go into debt to float bonds. That doesn't even make sense. Yeah. If you don't have the money, you don't do the project. So to be able to give a quick response to somebody says, I don't have solutions, I did. I'm a real estate broker. I already reached out, and I said that at the last meeting, to a commercial real estate broker. I said, well, listen, these are the needs that we have. It would have bays, it would have offices. What can we find that there's plenty of warehouse? What can we find with office space that's in the county that would be able to serve the purpose? We don't know what's coming down the pike. Neither does anybody else, because they haven't gone to the meetings. I'm going to keep going back to that. They haven't spoken with other commissioners. They haven't been with leadership that is both national and from Florida. They haven't spoken with representatives who are willing to tell the truth. It's like a doctor coming in, this is the medication. These are the procedures you need to have to maybe extend your life, maybe by 5 years or 10 years. Or no, do what you have to get your affairs in order. One of the two. But just tell me the truth. Tell me the facts. And so I did present that solution, and there was no response whatsoever from the other 4 commissioners. Maybe they didn't expect me to have a solution so quickly, but it's really quite simple. You lease, you rent. And like we do with everybody who comes up and wants our properties, maybe I'll offer $1 a year. No, maybe I'll up the ante. I'll do $1 a month. So it'd be $12 a year. That's a slap in the face to taxpayers too. I feel very strongly about that. You don't give away what isn't yours. So having said that, I did offer that solution and nobody supported it. Why? Why are we moving so fast for something that is detrimental to us that work very hard in Martin County, that has supported government, that's been overbloated? So again, yeah, we may need one. Okay, I found a solution for you that can be done very, very quickly. The whole process done very quickly. And that will move whatever facilities are off the airport, and the FAA will then be able to be satisfied with that particular piece.
Well, thanks, Commissioner Vargas. The narrative out there, we have to move from the airport. Is there a deadline, and what is it that we need to move our current facilities at the airport?
My understanding is it's within 3 years.
So
Maybe
3
it's
years.
2 years now, or 2.5 years now at this point. We originally had the discussion.
The other thing I just want to point out, because I have studied the P3 in depth, because we had our previous discussions with James Crocker as well. People said, well, it's a specialized building, there's specialized equipment in it. That line item on this budget, on the budget is $74 million. For furniture, fixture, and equipment is $5 million. So you can back that out of all the specialized equipment. That's what it's line itemed at. I just want to give that information to the people. And one thing I wanted to point out that you just touched on, you don't know this, but I just finished up an interview with our supervisor of elections, Vicki Davis and Carrie Anderson. And it was interesting. They had to replace their, voting machines. And she did it back in I think she said 2005, 2008. She said, but I knew that we were going to have to replace them again one day. So you know what I did? I said, County, when I have extra funds left over every year, can we just put it into essentially a sinking fund? Can we put it into a fund so we have the money to replace the machines when the time comes due? And you know what? That year was now. And they had the money to replace their machines, because back in 2005, 2008, and mind you, this county commission is known about needing an operations facility. They've set it on the dais over 2 decades. So it goes to your point. I couldn't agree with you more. Why aren't we putting away a little bit every year, and saving for this building that needed to be done? So I just wanted to share that story.
Well, I say bravo to Miss Vicki Davis and Carrie, right-hand person that was forward thinking, and it was very sound. And now she's able to proceed forward. We obviously agreed to give her the addition that is being built on the parking lot that's just to the north of her building. So she'll have a facility to protect our voting. But having said that, bravo, I'll say again, well done. Something that I would do also. This doesn't take a lot of depth of thinking. It's coming up. We need to do this. It could have been done, but you cannot be lax in your duties. And there have been a number of people that have come to me to say words that, well, I couldn't repeat on this program, put it like that, but I'm approachable. So, and folks appreciate that. When I push my buggy in the supermarket, yeah, I buy food too. And I, drive around town, go to the gym, whatever it may be. They approach me, they talk with me, they let me know if they're happy or they're not happy.
Commissioner Vargas, what's one reform you'd like to accomplish before the end of your term?
Ooh, that's a big question. I do have some projects that I'm working on, and I work with expediency. I'm thoughtful, I'm careful. I take under consideration advisement. If you're talking about a reform, I think more fiscally sound, more fiscally responsible. I think there has to be utmost transparency. Should be nothing less. When you're talking about something as huge expenditure and putting our folks in debt, because that's really what it is. It's fine to sign on the paper. And I've listened to the financial people that the county has selected to float the bonds, and I know the entities are purchasing it, but it's not that easy because, again, no, the severity. I've been studying a lot about this within 7 years. This is national level, something we cannot plug the hole in whatsoever. We are going to be suffering the brunt unless we lasso right now, wipe out, cut, transform the way the government's been running. And it always starts from the top up, always starts from the top up. But, I haven't finished talking about the P3 unless you want to stop talking about that.
Go right ahead.
That, as I said before, the thing is, it's how we're doing this project. This was rammed through. I'll use that word.
Mhm.
Be very explicit. It's one of the largest construction projects I think that Martin County has ever had, I believe. And yet none of our local contractors knew about this because the contractor approached me and says, "What happened?" I said, I don't know, but certainly I've been speaking about this. And I last meeting, I said, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 contractors I could think that are in our county that are capable, that are judicious, that can be reckoned with insofar as curbing the cost of this particular project. And I was just thinking right there on the die, if I really gave it a think, as they say, I probably could come up with 15 more.
Yeah.
But having said that, anyway, our local contractors had never been given the opportunity to bid on this. And they are certainly very formidable companies too. And, the other thing is, having read through the contract, our taxpayers were told that this was price certainty, but the agreement allows for costs and timelines to grow. Yes, it did. And last meeting, I was told, no, it doesn't. Yes, it does. But you're just taking somebody else's word for it. Read the contract. My sister, first year law student, she said to me, it doesn't matter what you say. A judge is going to go by a contract, the written word that you agree to. Is this your signature? Is this? Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay, fine. Anyway, the public keeps hearing this is a fixed price contract. It is not. It is not. I've said it twice. It is not. And I said it from the die several times. You got to read the contract. It's a cost plus contract. And those are two very, very different things, very different things. The contract includes a 20% contingency, far greater than the average norm in the industry of 3 to 5% contingency. So that's what a normal construction contract would allow, 3 to 5% rather than 20. Why?
Right.
Why? It also provides for a cost escalation. So the price of goods or workmanship or deliverables, whatever it may be, for this project. And that could add an additional 20 million, maybe plus. This is padded. Yes, I'm going to use the word padded onto the project. So it permits change orders. They kept saying, no, it doesn't. I said, yes, it does. Read the contract. Why would somebody tell me something that I read? I read English very well. I'm a language arts teacher, a literature teacher. I know how to redline when something's wrong and somebody's doing a lot of smoke and mirrors here. And the thing is, it allows extension of the construction timeline. Wait a moment. Didn't I say a moment ago, and I've been told in the meetings, it's 2.5 to 3 years we have to be off the airport. But I have a solution. Let's go ahead and lease warehouse space with office space too.
Right.
Put everybody there. Who knows? We might do a lease purchase, a better deal. And then we reconfigure it, specialize, or whatever you need. So anyway, these aren't my opinions. These are written into the contract. And when you're spending tens of millions of taxpayer dollars, don't ever ask anybody to simply trust the process. No, no, no. No, you don't. You prove it through the transparency and competition from other companies. And I said in the meeting, cut out the middleman. We don't need a developer. We go directly to a contractor that has all the legitimacy. And also, I also questioned who was writing the checks and to whom. I could never get an answer. Everybody stared at me with blank eyes. I'm talking about my fellow commissioners and our manager. I'm not saying anything that I didn't say from the die before. You can rewind the video. So anybody can have their opinion, whether an association or an individual. You can have your own opinion about things because there are vested interest in there. Again, I'm going, who's getting paid? There's a lot of fat in here, but you got to have the facts. And if you don't have the facts, you have no argument whatsoever. Quantify it for me, please. I invite you to. The facts are in the agreement and not in the presentation of flowery words. And this is a good deal. That doesn't mean anything.
No.
What is a good deal? A good deal is to get out of this immediately. That's a good deal.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if this is condescending, this is what you have. But I don't think so. It's a few people that are unnerved, like, my goodness, why is she upsetting the apple cart? Because it's been going on for way too long. And I'm not the only commissioner to say this. I have them across the other 66 counties that were very vocal, at this latest conference.
Hmm.
That's what they're paid for. That's what they're to do. And if they want to do something else, they need to go into private business or I don't know, do something else that makes them feel good and makes others feel good. But there's been a small group in this county that has actually dominated the commission until I came along.
You are a lone voice up there right now, especially, this P3 process. I've had contractors come to me. They're very frustrated. They are also a little afraid to speak out because they're afraid of retribution. I don't know by whom, but they're just like, I don't want to go on public record. But they're very disappointed that they did not have the opportunity on this P3. And I'm thinking with a 20% contingency padding, you know. My God, it shouldn't have other contingency cost over that, but it still could. If you read the contract, it still can. So, I appreciate you being a voice up there. I think probably one thing you just need to realize you're one of five. So, you're trying to get the needle to move, but in the end, it's for us as voters to decide who's up there doing the job for us. If we feel that they're being fiscally conservative or not. And, the time to speak is during the election. We have one coming up this year. So August 18th, our Martin County Commission races will be decided on August 18th. There's 2 races that are up. So make sure you get out and vote, people. It makes a difference. If you watch these commission meetings, you've asked some really tough questions and they came back. They said they answered them. I didn't feel like they did, Commissioner Vargas, myself. So I feel like it's just, okay, we're going to put on a presentation to quell the opposition, and now we move on and we're going to spend the $74 million anyway. And that's probably what they're going to do. But it wasn't easy for you to be up one of five to be up there speaking. And I just want to say personally, just as a constituent here in Martin County, I appreciate your voice and saying what was on my mind. I hope a representative is up there asking those tough questions. So you've done that. You're doing that with, Brightline Train. You're doing that. I know you're questioning some of the nonprofit expenditures that we just talked about a little bit as well. Those are all very important questions we need to ask, especially if this proposal passes in November. We're going to have to tighten our belt. And I don't think that it means we have to cut police or fire departments. So, we need to look at where we have pork in our budget and maybe unnecessary expenses. And maybe some of the nonprofits need to just go out and fundraise privately. So,
Yeah, these are all very valid points. I encourage anybody, including the contractors, they can come and talk with me and I will definitely give them. About this particular P3 project, there's too much that's been kicked up about it. And I was the one to question. I continue to question. There's a lot of the unknown there, and somebody can stand up and say it's wonderful and whatever, but why? Why? Why would you do that? I've just pointed out some valid points. I'm very happy to sit with anybody and give the points again, but they can rewind the video too. Might be better for them to do that as many times as they wish. This particular project should not be happening now. We have a referendum that's going to be on the ballot. We don't know how this is going to end, and to commit ourselves to be paying this type of money for this project and put ourselves in debt is unconscionable. Unconscionable.
couldn't agree more. And again, I appreciate you being the lone voice up there. And Commissioner Vargas, this has been a lengthy interview, but I have to tell you, thank you so much for taking time to answer all these questions. Again, she didn't know what I was going to ask her before she came on, and I wanted to touch on some of the narrative that's out in the community and just get your response and, find out why you're going to conferences and why it costs some money. And you are a new commissioner, you're learning. So it's important to go to some of these conferences to learn more. And I think it's incredible value to talk with other counties across the state and even across the nation. So, whether viewers agree or disagree with your positions, the goal is just to give residents the opportunity to hear directly from you and the people that are making decisions on our behalf. As always, I encourage everyone to stay informed, ask questions, and participate in local government. Don't forget to follow the KC Ingram Show on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube for more real talk you won't hear anywhere else on KC Ingram. Stay informed, stay engaged. I will see you on the next episode. Commissioner Eileen Vargas, thank you again for your time here this afternoon and discussion.
My pleasure. Thank you.